Hello and welcome to The Hard Sell, the programme where the stick in the swill-bucket rattles back. Implausibly enough, it's Christmas again. Yes, another year flames out in an orgy of indulgence due to slam into a brick wall on January the 2nd with no decompression chamber whatsoever. And that's obviously quite resource intensive. Fortunately, the commercial networks are packed with suggestions at this time of year to help you out. You know the score. Let's do this thing.
Have a ball. A snowball.
So I don't drink, mostly. Almost the only alcohol I imbibe all year is at Christmas, when I have my traditional Yuletide snowball. And that's a cocktail made with 1 part lemonade, or occasionally tonic water or bitter lemon, to 2 parts of the original Christmas liqueur, Advocaat. A squeeze of lime juice to taste. Advocaat is often conflated with that great American Christmas drink, eggnog, but while the principle is similar, they are distinct. Advocaat is egg-based, but it's alcoholic rather than milky. It is a bit like egg custard, but rather less than I imagine eggnog to be. Not that I've ever tried it, it's almost impossible to find American-style eggnog over here. Someone do something about that. Anyway, Advocaat has always done well at Christmas, while remaining all but invisible for the remaining 46 weeks of the year, so the drink itself is more of a household name than any of its manufacturers. Supermarket-owned brands notwithstanding, there aren't many famous names in Advocaat, and the ones there are tend to be slightly off-putting to say aloud, in that Dutch sort of way. Bowls, for example.
The exciting drink made with Golden Bowls Advocaat and sparkling lemonade. So have a ball. Bowls Advocaat makes the most of your snowball.
A 10 out of 10 for effort, trying to associate that slightly comical one-syllable name with the hip, swinging, cosmopolitan late 60s imagery. I'm not entirely sure it came off. There is one detail in this advert that might pass you by the first time, but once you notice it, you can hear it bellowing at the top of its lungs at you every time. A bit like the FedEx Arrow. Look at this bit.
With Golden Bowls Advocaat and sparkling lemonade.
So the bloke gets the drinks in, like a true gentleman, for his 2 hot girlfriends. That's not the strange detail, that's just a permissive society at work. No, the detail I'm referring to is that his round consists of snowballs for the ladies, but a standard jar of foaming nut brown ale for himself, which he makes absolutely sure you see him drinking out of, in case there's any confusion. It's not until the 90s and the invention of the ladette that women are finally given permission by wider society to drink the same things as men. I mean, they're supposed to be delicate flowers, for God's sake, not foul-mouthed lumps of farting beef like blokes are. And by the same token, a man seen drinking Advocaat might as well hold up a flashing neon sign saying, "I am homosexual, poof, please kick me in the teeth." It's this way of thinking that's pretty much the sole reason that Baby Sham exists.
So have a ball. Bowls Advocaat makes the most of your snowball.
Probably the biggest brand of Advocaat goes under the slightly more prepossessing name of Warnings. And again, they made the same assumption that their product was solely for women, although the advert wasn't.
All the women in your life love warnings, Advocaat, at Christmas.
Really? I mean, thinking about it, this may actually be true, but how does Warnings know that? And why do they care? And why did they find out? And why don't they think women are capable of buying their own liqueurs? Unless they're saying I should get them Warnings as a gift. But I'm not that tight.
All the women in your life love warnings, Advocaat, at Christmas.
Anyway, that straightforward, if morally questionable setup came from the early 70s. By 1985, as so often happened in this decade, style has overridden the company's common sense.
Brown and yellow woman, mellow warning. Make it bitter, make it sharp, warning. You want to drink it tall, make it dry, nice and light. Take your warnings how you like. Taste around it, will astound. Advocaat from warning.
Mix it with warnings.
It looks appropriately like a Lufthansa terminal video, but they couldn't quite get the music right. It's a valiant effort, and the arrangement does sound as if it might possibly have been produced by Vince Clarke, but underneath it's a standard advertising jingle. It doesn't have the slightly detached Depeche Mode synth-pop cool it's shooting for, even with Doctor Who on the voiceover.
Mix it with warnings.
Having not quite managed to be cool, Warnings later changed tack and went for warm and approachable by hiring Helen Lederer as frontwoman, apparently in the spirit of her monologuing girl at the bar character from Naked Video.
And we're not into the sort of traditional courting syndrome, you know, where you have dates. I mean, I might say, see you a date, and he might come a date, you know, or 9 or 11. No, but that's rare, because usually it doesn't turn up at all, which is fine. And we've managed to free ourselves from, you know, the bourgeois language of shorthand, you know.
As you can see, although she's now freed from the bar and allowed to interact with visible humans, she still monopolises the dialogue.
Right, OK, everybody, I'd like you all to meet Jane. Jane, this is Fiona. Fiona's with Nigel. Nigel, Jane, Jane, Nigel, and Jessica. Jessica's on her own tonight, aren't you, darling? This is marvellous, marvellous. This is wonderful, wonderful and marvellous. This is Fred and Sabina. Sabina, this is Warnings. Now then, Warnings, I like to eat tonic. Tonic is Warnings. Warnings, tonic and ginger.
If you've never met Warnings with tonic, ginger ale or bitter lemon, perhaps it's time you did.
Now then, has anyone not met French bread and pate?
Warnings. It's really rather nice to mix with.
She also essayed a few other characters in her brief time as Warnings spokeswoman, like this resolutely un-Christmassy Woticism lady.
After a few hot wallets, Warnings and bitter lemons really rather refreshing.
Anyone for mixed doubles?
I've already got one, thanks.
At the turn of the 90s, Warnings made one last attempt at making Advocaat cool by giving it a milk tray James Bond kind of feel, which basically meant a Burke in a trench coat being chased by wolves. What did any of that mean? Well, nothing. It's just a succession of vaguely sophisticated and fashionable images arranged into a very rough narrative and concluded with a product shot. A classic advert structure, in other words, particularly popular in the 80s. Probably didn't do a thing for Advocaat sales, mind. It's got almost nothing to do with Advocaat.
Here's a present for everyone doing their Christmas shopping this year.
Free money?
It's big.
A lot of free money?
It's exciting. And once you get into it, you won't be disappointed. Because there's something in it for everyone. With hundreds of different and unusual gifts to choose from, you can wrap up all your Christmas shopping in one.
Yes, note the word can in there. It's certainly possible, in theory, to buy all the goods you need from this one shop, but do it in practice and not everyone will necessarily thank you.
Boots. It's everything you ever wanted for Christmas.
Boots. Robert Powell might be overstating the case a bit, but that's what he's paid to do. Certainly while Christmas shopping, it's almost a cast-iron certainty that you will find yourself in Boots eventually, or Superdrug, or Day Lewis, or one of many other chain chemists and drugstores. You might not be able to satisfy the gift desires of everyone you know from that one shop, but you can check off a healthy chunk. And of course this advert is from the 80s, when it was much easier. Not only did Boots have a wider range, it was like a department store in those days. I don't remember seeing toys and minor electronics in there for a while now. But there was also a much narrower choice. No video games, no VHS. Well, I mean, those things existed, but they were well out of reach of the kind of people who shopped at Boots, except ironically. Anyway, the point is, Boots, like the late lamented Woolworths used to be, is one of those shops you automatically visit at Christmas whether you mean to or not. They even said as much on the adverts.
Could you imagine Christmas without a trip to Boots?
You meant to say no, you see. In the past, Boots have often turned to the fat man as a Christmas spoke-self, to symbolise variety. This was back when they had variety, of course. And for such a simple character, a jolly fat bloke who delivers presents, there are a lot of potential characterisations for Mr. S. Claus. In 1981, for example, they depicted him as some sort of desperately lonely idiot savant.
What a nice surprise. So much to choose at every boot, you won't believe your eyes. Shopping can be lots of fun, you're certain to succeed. Give them boots, give vouchers, they can choose just what they need.
Down to only the one reindeer, having presumably eaten the rest over the course of several solitary years to stave off the freezing Arctic winters.
Be a gift this Christmas and find the gift that suits. The special touch of Christmas with the special touch of Boots. Ooh.
Never mind, the hole in the ozone layer will soon push the temperature up.
Special touch of Boots. Ooh.
A rather better adjusted version came in 1990, which is slightly ironic as it's actually Raymond Briggs's version, complete with due credit.
Phew, what a blooming list. I'd better try Boots for this lot. Just what I'm looking for. Mustn't forget the aftershave. Something for the ladies. Very professional. I wouldn't mind that myself. Now, let's see. They look tasty. The kids will love you. No, I think that's the blooming lot. Whoops, now I'm for it.
Oi, I've got something for you.
And I've got something for you too, my dear. From Boots. There's a Christmas present for everybody at Boots.
The irony is that Briggs's Father Christmas is famously grouchy and even mildly misanthropic for someone who spends an entire night handing out gifts to literally the entire population of the world. There's none of that here, presumably in part because the animated adaptation, which canonised this suburban reimagining of Santa with the voice and mannerisms of the late Mel Smith, hasn't happened yet. It's still distinctively and legally Briggs's artwork, but the equally distinctive subversive sense of humour is missing.
A bit of luxury for Aunt Jane. Perfume for Cousin Kate. A toy for little Tommy. What a blooming good idea for young Freddie. I've even got something for the old dear. There's a Christmas present for everybody at Boots.
Then again, it's an advert for a shop, so subversion isn't really in the cards. The most subversive advert in the world is still an advert, and therefore, by definition, about as subversive as the Conservative Party conference.
Because I've done like indies and blockbusters, you know, kind of well-rounded. I mean, basically the only thing I haven't done is a nude scene and get paid a ton of money to be in a commercial for a beer I don't even drink. So this gave me the opportunity to basically do both of those things. Newcastle Brown Ale, the only beer that ever promised me a high-paying role in a commercial and then backed out at the last second like a bunch of Suck it. Suck it.
Still, while he might not have been quite Briggs's creation, he was better than the following year's Boots campaign.
Oh, that's nice, that's nice.
This time they kept Kringle himself off screen, in favour of a squadron of terrifying, mentally subnormal animated brownies who are apparently supposed to be his elves. I didn't know he was moulding them into his image.
That's nice, that's nice.
This'll get a warm reception.
Cool and fresh, just like me.
So they run around and squawk and look at various gift items available at Boots, bath salts and cafeterias and Game Gear.
Great reactions. Great present.
Great reactions, whose?
Coffee. And biscuits.
Wow, we're getting a good collection.
Here's another one.
For the all-seeing Santa decides their work is done and Hello and welcome to The Hard Sell, the programme where the stick in the swill-bucket rattles back. And plausibly enough, it's Christmas again. Yes, another year flames out in an orgy of indulgence due to slam into a brick wall on January the 2nd with no decompression chamber whatsoever.